there are multiple ways to judge soccer players. You know, you could judge soccer and football players off of how they play the game. You know, you could judge soccer players and football players off how they play the game. You know, their skill sets and their talent level. You know, that's the most common way to judge a player. You know, certain players are more technically skilled than others. You know, certain players are have a very tactical knowledge of, of the game of football. Some players are very have a very tactical mindset in the game of football, and there's certain players who have a high football IQ, and there's certain players who have a low football IQ. You know, but I have a very special way to to determine how certain players will perform at the World Cup. You know, there's a difference between club level of football and soccer and the World Cup. The World Cup is on a whole different level. The World Cup is the highest stage of soccer. The World Cup is the highest level of soccer. You know, the World Cup is definitely more rigorous. You see certain players how you see certain players play well at the club. There's certain players who play well for their club team. Then they go to the World Cup and they play the total opposite. They play horribly. And the vice versa, the opposite applies as well. You know, there's certain players who are average for the club team, don't perform so well for their club team, but they go to the World Cup and they play like they're world class. You know, there's certain players who just have the ability to play at that next level, and there's certain players who don't have that ability. You know, and I can tell which players have the ability to perform well at the level of the World Cup. You know, I can tell by players' temperament, their demeanor, a player's temperament, a player's demeanor. You know, I'm very good at reading people. Some people don't have that gift. I have that gift. I can read people like a book. You know, you, you you can read someone just based off how they carry themselves and their body language. You know, the energy that someone gives off. You know, and you don't even have to know that person. You know, but you can read that person's body language. Me, I can read a player's body language, their temperament, their demeanor, and I can tell by that how they carry themselves if they're going to be that type of player who can play at a high level at the World Cup. For example, I can I can tell that the players of Senegal, you know, by their temperament, by their demeanor, that they have that level of confidence, you know, and the mentality to succeed at the World Cup. You know, I could tell by the I can look at Sadio Mane and tell that he's a confident player, that he's humble, that he's confident, he has no fear in him on that football field. I could just see it in his temperament, in his demeanor. Same thing with the Koulibaly. Koulibaly, he's a defender for Senegal, and I could tell by his temperament, his demeanor, how he carries himself, that he's not about games. He's very serious, and he's that player type of player who has confidence. I could just see it on them, on certain people. You know, then I can look at other certain players and I can look at them and tell as soon as I see them that, hey, that player doesn't have what it takes to play at the World Cup. I could tell just by the demeanor. I can look at a soccer player and tell if they have what it takes. Do they have it in them? And I can tell by your demeanor. So Senegal, like when I look at the Senegalese Teranga Alliance, when I look at all their individual players, I can look at them and tell that they have what it takes to potentially make history at this World Cup. So that's one of the reasons why I'm rooting for Senegal, because I know I can just tell by their temperament that the Senegalese players have what it takes to do it big at the next level. You know, there's also been several times where I've seen players during their friendly matches. I could just sense by how they carry themselves, like, hey, I don't think that team's going anywhere. You know, certain people just don't carry themselves with confidence. You know, you could tell someone has confidence just by the way that person moves and how they carry themselves. You know, and confidence is key at the World Cup. The World Cup is the highest level of football and soccer. So at the World Cup level of football, you definitely need a high level of confidence, you know, to put in the most effort possible. So if I was a coach, that would be one of my tools that I would use to determine if a player is going to start for me, if the player is going to be on my team, just by reading their body language. You know, you know, a player can be super talented, super skilled, but if they carry themselves with a demeanor that says that they're not confident, then that person can't be on my World Cup team. You know, you can have all the skill in the world, but if you don't have the confidence to back up that skill, to bring it, you don't have the confidence to bring that skill out of you during big game situations, then hey, you cannot be on my team. You know, some players just don't have the confidence in them to perform well in big games. You see it all over sports and multiple sports. You know, there's certain players who do, and like in basketball, for example, there's certain players in basketball during the regular season, you know, they put up 30 points per game. You know, they're leading scorer. You know, they're a big component to their team. And the playoffs begin, they play like a whole different player. You know, they play like a superstar during the regular season, but as soon as they get to the playoffs where the games really matter, they don't play at the same high level. You know, and that's because they lack that true level of confidence. Confidence is key. And you could tell if someone's confident just by how they carry themselves. So, all right, you guys, peace.